You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is composed of citizen volunteers and meets on the first Monday of each month. The board advises the City Council and city staff on issues that affect the city's parks and recreational programs. And now, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting for January 7th, 2013. A new year, some new faces here on the board. I thought we've got an agenda this evening. We're going to start with Connie. She's going to talk about the new folks. And then we're actually going to talk about officer elections. So, Connie, if you want to start.
All right. Very proud tonight to have Chuck Maxwell, who's our newest Parks Board member. And we'll welcome you aboard. I know you've worked with staff a lot, and we're excited to have you on the board and help to advise the city on all matters of Parks and Recreation. We are expecting a very exciting 2013. So, anyhow, glad to have you on board.
Thank you. Appreciate
Welcome,
it.
Chuck.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. I guess we've got election of officers before approval of minutes, but that's fine. We need to talk about electing a new chairman, which is the position that I've had for the last year, and a new vice chairman, which is the position that Billy Waite had until he was term limited out of his position. So it looks like the de facto vice chair at this point is just arriving.
This has always happened.
I think you just got appointed.
Did I get appointed? Yeah.
By Connie. So normally the way that we do this, if someone is interested in serving in one or both of those positions, we talk about it here. We can, if someone wants to think about it, we can table this to the next time that we meet. Or if we want to wait until after we have our onboarding that we do in January for new members, if you want to wait and see if it's something that you want to tackle out of the gate, or if it's something that you want to wait a year until you feel comfortable with, that's fine too. So I guess my question is there anybody that's interested in taking over as chairman of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, or that would be interested in being a vice chairman for the next year?
I'll do the vice chair.
Okay, so we have someone in the second chair. Is there anybody that's interested in taking over the first chair?
I think you've done a fine job. Can we just have you do it again?
Well, I have one more year, and I told Connie that I would be glad to give it up to someone else if they were interested, but I would be glad to do it for another year until I'm done, if nobody else is interested in doing it. If anybody has a strong passion, speak now. Okay.
Crickets.
All right, so I guess Philip and I are going to continue as we have been described here as chair and vice chair.
Chairman, we probably need to have a motion on that.
Okay.
I'll motion that.
Which one?
That
Chair
Bill
and vice chair.
and both Steve are chair and vice chair.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Why don't we do a roll call, Melanie? We'll start off the year with a roll call. So just yay or nay for the 2 on the slate.
I hadn't done this in like 2 years.
I know.
Leonard,
Yay.
Sass,
Yay.
Maxwell,
Yay.
Hoff,
Yay.
Meldrum,
Yay?
Lawson,
Yay.
Watson,
Yay.
Prophet.
Yay.
All right.
Yay.
I think that's it. So we'll continue on as we've been described on the page. All right, third up.
Botanical Garden representative. I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Okay, all right, we'll talk about that here, because we've got to talk about committees anyway, so we'll do that. So next up is approval of meeting minutes from December 3rd, 2012. Anyone have any changes, amendments, corrections that we need for the minutes? I was not here, so I don't have anything. Sure everybody read them in full, made sure all punctuation, everything was correct. Good.
Motion to accept minutes as written.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor of approving the December 3rd meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, those are approved. So next up on the agenda, we need to talk about appointing folks from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board to our city committees. So Connie, do you have a list of things
I
that we need to
do.
talk about?
There's two of them. The Active Transportation Advisory Committee, we are to have one board member serve on that committee. It meets quarterly on the second Wednesday at 5:30. It's every other Wednesday. Every other month that they meet, every other Wednesday, every other month that they meet. John Paul has been very active on that, so I don't know
Can I stay? Is it,
if they'll let you.
unless anybody else wants to?
That's-
Or do I need to get
If you want to do it, I'm sure.
approval from them?
I think if you want to continue on with that, I think we could probably come to consensus on it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And the other committee is the Botanical Gardens of the Ozark. They meet the third Tuesday every other month. It says of every month, but it's every other month at 6 p.m. at Lake Fayetteville. And I know Watson has been serving on that in the past.
Do you mind describing a little bit about how that transpires and what you do for us for the committee?
Sure. Basically, you're just the liaison between the Parks Advisory Board and the Botanical Garden. You kind of sit in on all their meetings. They discuss upcoming events. You make announcements at the Parks Advisory Board meeting about upcoming events. You know, this last year's been a little bit different because they've been moved. They've done some different things at their, which involves the city council. One of them being the farmers market.
Sunday.
First Sunday.
Yeah.
They're moving the farmers market out there. There was some legal issues as far as that goes that had to get worked out. So, you know, I was kind of the liaison between everybody and that. But a lot of that stuff just goes through city council. So basically, you sit on there. You don't really have any requirements on those boards other than being there and being the liaison between the two.
Yes, it's not a voting position. We also have one park staff member that serves, and this year, Byron Humphrey has volunteered to serve for our park staff. So
And they usually feed you at all the meetings. So just so you
Oh.
know.
I wonder if Byron's Anybody interested in that, in taking over for Philip? This is 4 times a year, right? Or is it 6 times a year?
6
times. 6 times.
6 times a year.
And it meets when?
it meets the third Tuesday every other month, starting in January. So it'll be the odd months.
Is that an evening meeting or is it
Mhm.
evening?
Yeah, at 6
6 o'clock.
Sure, that sounds interesting. I'll try that.
Oh, good.
I'll do that.
Super. Do we need to vote on those or are we just, are we good?
I think you all can appoint them, so however you want to do it. We've usually in the past have voted, so let's just keep going
Okay.
with voting.
So do I have a motion?
Motion for John Paul to remain in the position of Active Transportation Advisory Committee and for David Prophet to take on the Botanical Gardens of the Ozark Board of Directors position.
Second.
It's a motion and a second to have those folks serve on those committees. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Okay. Number 4 is done. And you guys did not have a meeting this month of the Botanical Garden Society, so we can skip that. Next up is Allison with Parkland Dedication.
We have one parkland dedication project tonight. It's called Park Hill. It's located within the Mountain Ranch subdivision, which is partially built out now. It's west of 540 and south of Persimmon Street. The engineer on the project is Jorgensen and Associates, and Justin Jorgensen is back here if you guys have questions about the development. Centennial Bank owns the property. It's in the southwest park quadrant. They're developing 13 single-family units. This is the site layout they're proposing. These are the new units here. This is, the street to the north is Persimmon, and this is, I believe, Mountain Ranch Boulevard. And the developer is requesting to pay money in lieu. Staff is also recommending money in lieu. We have Dale Clark Park, Shiloh Trail, and Village at Shiloh Parkland, and Bryce Davis, all within a mile service area. This project actually came through several years ago, I think in maybe 2009 or 10. They've already paid for 5 single-family units, so they would just pay for the additional 8. And Chuck, this is your first one, I guess, so I'll give you a super short, won't give you the full spiel at orientation, but every residential development that comes through has to contribute to the park system, either through money in lieu or land. Go ahead. Questions?
And I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Do we have needs in that quadrant? Are there significant needs for money in that quadrant?
Oh, for money?
Yeah, so if we're taking money in lieu of...
Right.
Regional Park is in that
Yeah.
area.
Regional
Bryce
Park's in
Davis
that
Park
quadrant.
is in that area.
Yeah.
So we have
Most
several.
parks in that area, yeah, the southwest.
And there's going to be a trail that connects all the way down along the bypass, is that correct?
There will be, Shiloh, yeah, and actually part of that was built with the first part of Mountain Ranch along the ponds here. This little green strip is trail.
Mhm.
So that has been started and it will continue
It's a
on.
nice little quick, short trail.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Most of those parks that you have highlighted, are those, I forgot the different categories, but are those the neighborhood parks?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. Dale Clark Park is next to the Boys and Girls Club. Village at Shiloh, Parkland is more of a natural area. It's a wooded hillside. And then there's Shiloh Trail. And Bryce Davis actually isn't shown on there, but it's to the north within that mile service. Or I guess 2 mile because it's a community park. It's a side layout again.
$7,100 in lieu, right?
Yeah, there's
Or
actually a
some.
typo there. It's 7316.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's still not a huge...
No, and that's based on the new amounts that were updated last year for the ordinance.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay,
I make a motion, we accept staff's recommendation and accept money in lieu.
second. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation to accept money in lieu, parkland dedication for Park Hill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, that one's done. Okay, next up, we have Mr. Frank Sharp here to talk about Kessler Mountain.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
How many of you have been out hiking on Kessler? I know you have. Okay, I know Chuck is. It's an hour.
Hiking, maybe. Yeah.
What I'd be happy to do is, Terry, you're familiar with it.
Sure.
Terry knows every rock in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
And, but anyone that would like to come out, I'd like to take them on a hike through that. You'll see now, Alison, you sent them sort of that introduction to the report. Did you all get a chance to read that? That sort of sums it up, so there's no need for my going through the whole, rigmarole again. But basically, South Pass of 900 acres was to build 4,000 houses up there. And unfortunately, they went south. But Chambers Bank then took it over, and Chambers honored the pledge that South Pass made of donating 200 acres, I guess 245 acres to the city for a regional park. And plus $1 million as it develops. Okay. Ozark off-road cyclists, I shouldn't say bootlegging, but they built 8.5 miles of trails up here on Kessler over the last, how many years, Chuck?
Goes back.
Yeah, no, really, the landowners, all of this, I've got about 100 acres here, and James Steele has 80, and all the landowners allow hikers, as long as they respect the woods and trails, to use our woods and trails. And So there are 8.5 miles of trails here. Basically, this is the old trail we call the Trent Trail. Mr. Kessler, the Kessler Mountain is named after, had a winery back in the middle of the 19th century. And the only way to get to it was to come off Highway now 62 and come up the Trent Trail, which is right here. It took all day in a horse and wagon, they said, to get to the winery in Fayetteville. And that is basically the crest of the mountain, and all of this part goes into the Illinois River watershed, and the rest of all this goes into the White River watershed. And of the 900 acres, there are 387 acres here. They're just rough as a cob, just bluffs and rocks, and they're I don't say I'd like to bite them, because they do, and they're heavily used. And I see the main purpose of this as an outdoor classroom for the University of Arkansas plus the Fayetteville school system. We've had, I'm in the process of doing a report that I want to present to the city of Fayetteville, University of Arkansas, some foundations, to try to raise some money to buy this 387 acres, which we're calling the Mount Kessler Reserve. And the 4 major uses would be outdoor recreation, outdoor classroom, watershed protection, because this would be much better on Beaver Lake than 4,000 houses, and also just the preservation of the natural area. Another thing, you've got 1,000 acres here that's within the city limits of Fayetteville. It's 5 minutes or 10 minutes from campus, depending on the traffic. And what I'm doing in this report is I'm trying to make it such that we can present the University Board of Trustees and the City Council and these different foundations and private groups. And I'm dividing it city, university. We have a lot of advocacy groups like Fayetteville Natural Heritage, the Nature Conservancy, Ozark Society, and then we have a lot of users like Ozark Off-Road Cyclists. We've got the Friends of Slaughter Pen Trail from Benton County. We've got Ozark Highland Trail Association. We've got Northwest Arkansas Hiking Club, people that use it. And what I would like to do, I've gotten letters of support from the Urban Forestry Advisory Board. The Environmental Action Committee has been out, and we're in the process of getting a letter of support from them. I'm meeting Wednesday with Matt Halovich's Active Transportation Group. And what I'd like to do is talk with you all about writing a letter of support that tells you that you would like to see this 387 acres retained, and then tell something about your committee, what Parks and Recreation Advisory Board does. And I'm trying to line up some pictures of that. And also, any of you that haven't hiked it, I'd really like to take you all out for a 10 or 15 minute hike per day. We have group after group after group. We've had 2 this week that hiked it. Years ago, I can't remember how many years ago it was, before we actually had these trails, or a few deer trails, I had Connie, Allison, and Matt Mihalovich back when he worked with Connie. And we walked all over that mountain. This is back when South Pass was just coming in the beginning. And I said something to Connie about, I'll stop by your office tomorrow. She said, well, I'm having a foot operation tomorrow. And I dragged that poor woman all over the mountainside on a hurt foot. But
Frank's a mountain goat. I promise.
Also, I see this as sort of like the Walton Arts Center, where it's owned jointly by the university and the city, operating under an interlocal agreement, and but also have city board city appointees to the board, university appointees to the board, but also have people like from the Nature Conservancy, OORC, FAST, Ozark Highland Trail, the users, because some people early on were just talking university, and said, what if university ever closes those? So this would solve that problem. And which we hope, this report, I hope, personally, is to raise the money to buy this. And this is the time to buy it, because this land will never be any cheaper. My own land went from 15,000 acres, about 3,000 to 5,000 acres adjacent to that, because rough rough mountain land just doesn't, with the economy the way it is not worth much. And Chambers Bank is willing to sell, so that is basically it. I'll be happy to answer any questions and take any of y'all on the hike that haven't done on it.
Yeah, one, I didn't see your name and contact information if we did want to get with you and go on a hike.
Okay, it's Kessler Greenways at PGTC, that's PrairieGroveTelephone.com, or just call me on my cell.
I can send out that to him if you want me to.
Okay.
Or you
Okay.
can put it on the tape if you want.
Okay, the cell is 957-4069. And I can take you on like a 15 or 20 minute hike. That's what we call Rock City. It's beautiful, beautiful rock formation. It's just about 15 minutes from my house. So it doesn't have to be a 8-mile hike or anything.
I would enjoy to do that.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Willie.
Yeah.
Can I ask though, what's the threat to Kessler Mountain right now? I kind of see what we have here, but I don't see. Could you explain what the threat is?
I guess the threat is the Chambers Bank gets tired of waiting for us and sells to a developer. You know, that developer might say, this is really cheap property, I'm willing to buy it and sit on it in years.
And this isn't part of the Chambers Bank?
This is.
No, this is a part of the group that we're dealing with for our planning?
We've already have received our property. We've received 200 acres from them, then plus the landfill was part of the deal, the 44 acre landfill. So we already have our parkland. But, I mean, this does...
Work well with it.
Yeah, it does. All the green that's outlined on this map that's in your packet is...
It's basically going to be
parkland.
trails and things.
So a developer owned this originally,
Yes, and
that financed through Chambers, Chambers took it from them, and now they have it, and they're only committed to this yellow portion.
Well, the
green, the dark green,
green
which is
and
city
the
park,
yellow.
they've already deeded
They've
those
already-
portions to us.
the Chambers Bank decided to go on and honor the contract that South Pass had with the city, and they went on and gave us our 200 acres. And then they said, as development does come in, then that $1 million that comes with it, we will pay that out.
Now, is
So-
Chambers selling these yellow pieces, or are they
Yes,
doing
those
the
yellow
development?
pieces, the red
Okay.
piece, everything but the park green is for sale.
Okay.
All of it is still.
There's
for
another
sale.
wrinkle. The university has outgrown its intramural fields, and they're looking at 4 locations off-site, off-campus. One of them is the Marinoni Farm off Weddington. One is past Sam's Club on Garland. One is out near their baseball field, and one is adjacent to the city regional park. And I haven't heard, if they made a decision or.
They haven't made a decision yet,
Right.
but they're looking at that, which we think
That's
would
either
be
red.
a great use of it, to have the city and the university right beside each other, and partnerships that we could have with each other. So,
Plus, they would have room for expansion, they could, much room up there.
Got a question for Connie. How would this type of development that Mr. Sharp is talking about affect that $1 million that was promised for the regional park?
if development doesn't come in, then the $1 million was only as development would come in. Unless they're building homes.
no, the way I understand it is that development is in the initial plot that was entered. It's not just development in any of the area. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Right, so basically in the
Just
yellow
in
area
this
that the
property.
chamber still owns, as development comes into that area,
But the yellow, the red.
and the red.
And the big green.
Oh, and all the big, okay.
They own all of it.
They own all of that.
So I think I understand your question, which is, if the university were to purchase it, would we still get the $1 million, or would that have to be a consequence of them developing the property and making a profit to give us the $1 million?
That was only if a requirement for parkland dedication would be required. they would give money instead of.
So then the money, the $1 million would probably not show up unless that land was developed. Is that correct?
That's the way that I understand.
That's kind of the
They were
feeling
going
I'm
to give
getting.
it as the land is sold, as the land is, I take that back. They were going to give that as the land was sold.
Okay, so it may,
Yeah.
in fact, if it were to be
However, that's-
purchased or sold, that money may show up. But then again, there's a whole host of other things with streets and utilities that we would
Sharing,
not be sharing if the land wasn't developed.
correct. Cost sharing would be.
So
pretty
that's a
much
whole
us.
different wrinkle to the,
That's the big cost that's gonna be for developing the regional park, is gonna be water, sewer, streets, and then again, parking for the regional park as well. So all of those kind of things are gonna have to be purchased by the city before the regional park can take place.
Is there an idea of roughly the cost of the infrastructure for the regional park?
There is, and I don't have it, but I can get it.
Okay.
I didn't come with that
going way back.
information. Yeah, yeah, we worked on it at the beginning of last year, thinking it's been flushed.
Yeah.
But I'll be happy to find it for you.
But we weren't planning on paying it. We were planning on, or were we gonna share those costs with Chambers Banks?
Initially with South Pass, it was
Or the
designed that
development?
we were going to divide it out. But if another development came in, we would have those discussions just as the city, does with them as they come in. They would need a road to come into their development just as we do. So none of those discussions have been with the university yet.
So I guess, okay, here's my question. Is the yellow already determined development? So do we already have plans for development in the yellow areas? Or if somebody comes in and says, we'll buy it from Chambers Bank, will they just sell it to anyone?
Yeah.
Both of those are true. This whole site was an approved PZD, so development plans as far as planning, they've been approved as a PZD. So if somebody wanted to come in, buy a piece of this, develop it tomorrow, the plans are approved. But
Do they have to follow those plans?
they don't. It can be
Okay.
amended and changed. If someone came in with a different plan, they can come back through planning and get it amended.
Is there still like commercial, residential, all that in there?
Yeah, the development plans haven't changed since 2008 when it
So we
became
probably should see those plans at the next,
Things planned
the old plans so everybody knows where it sits and what could happen.
But, yeah, I mean, obviously the big concern is, this whole piece of property was brought in, with the intention of the regional park.
Right.
And, approving this, as wonderful as it sounds, and I'm very excited about it, but at the same time, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by basically negating our ability to have a regional park there by saying this is okay. That's kind of where I am at this
Connie,
point.
how could that negate
Well,
having a regional park? I mean, you've got the regional park.
Yeah, we've got the land.
Right, well, I mean, the cost of the infrastructure, I mean, the regional park isn't going to come into play until the infrastructure is paid for.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I just don't want to, not be able to develop a regional park because we don't have what's going on. I mean, there's just lots of questions that I have, like the price tag of how much the infrastructure is just for the regional park.
We have to consider all those issues. I think the thing that we always have to keep kind of in the vision, the light of it, is that this land was donated to us.
Sure.
To be used as a regional park. So, that's,
Yeah, I think,
we
Connie,
didn't have to purchase it, so.
I think for clarity, we should probably re-loop on what the cost of the infrastructure is estimated to be, how much money we have in that quadrant, how much we have set aside for the regional park, when does that expire? We just need that. In the scheme of things, losing $1 million if the land wasn't developed is probably small in comparison to the cost of the infrastructure and everything else we're going to have to do. I think because we have a lot of new people on the board, and I don't remember all the numbers, we should probably next time or the time
During
after.
orientation, possibly?
Yeah, maybe that would be the time to do it when we do the orientation.
And then just a little refresher next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I have another question. If we title this piece of property a reserve, how long can that ever change? Like if we title something a reserve, can 150 years down the road, can we go in and say, no, actually, we made a mistake, we need to develop that?
If it's a conservation easement, I don't think you can.
We have, on our place, we have 20 acres in a conservation easement that's held by the city of Fayetteville, monitored by Fayetteville Natural Heritage. My neighbor, Barbara Moorman, had the first conservation easement on the mountain that she also touches South Pass, 80 acres. Then way down at the south end, there's probably, the Johnson Pear Farm is like 400 acres. And about half of that's in an agricultural easement with Ozark Regional Land Trust. And I really think that it ought to be put in a land trust. I mean, a conservation easement, the whole.
And that's in perpetuity, right? Once it goes in the conservation easement, it's
because, you know,
undevelopable.
I can remember when.
Correct?
I think so.
I believe that's the way I understand it.
So
I
here would
remember
be-
when a city board tried to sell parts of Lake Fayetteville. You can remember that. So, you know, this would tie the hands of the university city of ever selling for development.
Here would be another issue that I would have is it borders our regional park on a substantial portion of it. If we outgrow our park, if we build this regional park and then outgrow it in 30 years, then we have to find a new location where we have all this really nice land available to use, right bordering the park. We could just expand into this land. Is there anything that we could do to make the land like a temporary? Do you follow?
Okay, now you can write a conservation easement any way you want. I mean, you could say that. Actually, I see that area between the regional park and the ORC trails as some intermediate trails that would be easier for bikers and people my age to hike and bike. And it could very easily be written into a conservation easement that the city could move in, except most of this area just goes right to the bluff. You know, there's very little, just 387
Here
acres
it's real steep.
that you could do anything.
There's 20-foot bluffs in there.
But my conservation is written that I can cut firewood off the 20 acres, have goats on the south end of it.
Okay.
So you can write a conservation easement any way you want.
Any way you want. I would just be very careful about doing anything that's incredibly permanent. And there's a guy in like the 40s in Washington, D.C. that said nothing can be as tall as the Washington Monument or something like that, and they like to take him and beat him up right now. I mean, it's just a terrible place to get around in because you can't build. So, because I just want to be careful of anything that I ever approve or sign off on, that I'm not affecting someone else's decision later on.
Well, conservation certainly does that because it does protect it. I mean, if this comes to pass, they may not want to put a conservation easement. I'm just saying I think it'd be a good idea to protect it. But it has to be very carefully written, so it does take that you can put up signs or pavilions or whatever.
And really, if it were to be purchased by the university, it would be their decision to put in a conservation easement, unless we had a partnership, right?
I see it joint.
Okay.
It would be part
Okay.
of the city, just like Walton Arts Center.
Okay.
It's jointly owned, and then they have a board that operates it, that have representatives from city, university, and then user groups.
Okay.
And they would be the ones to make the decision on conservation easement.
But could they also make decisions, I mean, it has to stay as a reserve or
Conservation.
easement. Well, conservation easement, is it something that they could turn around and change outside the reserve, or is it always going to be reserved?
I mean, I think Walton Arts Center, if they decide to tear the building down, they could do that, they have the power.
But but any agreement would have to be through the university and the city, both in
It would
agreement.
probably be through this board, I mean, this board that was formed to actually own it. Or I guess it would be, I'm sorry, it probably would be the city and the university would have to agree.
And it might be written that recreation activities that are enhanced by the nature area, such as zip lines or ropes courses and those sorts of things. Bike trails, pavilion could be incorporated, horseback trails.
I suppose it's just in what you write into the document, right?
Yeah, I'd be curious to see the actual wording of the document, I suppose.
Actually, what doesn't exist, everybody writes their own document. You know, I mean, you could say whatever you want in that conservation. And I'm not saying that group may not even want to put a conservation easement. I just think it needs to be protected though.
But we said conservation easement a lot here. Is there another, I mean, is there anything else that we could look to do to protect the land? Like a low develop, like a low impact? Something that we, is this the only, is conservation easement the only thing that we're out to do to protect the land?
Like Fayetteville, there's no easement on that.
No, but it's in a grant. It's in an Arkansas Parks and Tourism Outdoor Recreation Grant, and which states that that land must remain for outdoor recreation for perpetuity. If you decide that you would like to take, like when Highway 265, they wanted to widen the road, and the city sold them some of our right-of-way, which land was in a boundary, we had to do a lane conversion. And that's when we did it with the land that was donated on the south side of that 5 acres that enabled us to build the trail. We did a land conversion with that. Also, same way with Lake Sequoia. So, I mean, there are means.
So the state needed a highway, so we paid them for it.
Here you go. Sounds about right.
Kind of on Mount Sequoia. Now, there's a conservation easement
There's a
on that 100
conservation on
acres
Mount
on Mount Sequoia that is held by Fayetteville Natural Heritage.
Yes.
Okay.
And are there homes in that 100 acres?
No.
The city owns the property though, right?
The city owns the
So
property.
Fayetteville Natural Heritage is the,
Conservation easement holder, ECI.
okay.
Let's make a reserve.
And I don't know, I haven't seen the wording of the conservation easement on Mount Sequoia.
I think it says for recreational purposes only.
But your proposal is for a reserve, to do this as a reserve right now, and then maybe look at it as a conservation easement or.
I think that's one idea they ought to look at.
Okay, but right now, we're just talking about just doing it as a reserve jointly owned by the university and the city. Right, okay. I think conservation easement was kind of confusing everybody.
I guess really the wording of what your group could say is that you would recommend looking seriously at this proposal.
Yeah.
You'd like to see the land preserved, and then again, you get reservations as far as development.
Why don't we do this? Let's, at our offsite, I can't remember.
Retreat.
Thank you.
Orientation.
Yeah, we both have them. Why don't we take a look at all the facts and figures and the numbers, and then let's just have a consensus of what we would support, and get back to Mr. Sharp about what we might be willing to support as a committee.
And then maybe
And
just
if
a
any of
brief
y'all
little
would like to come and walk and just yell at me.
maybe just a little short little brief presentation at the next meeting so that we can kind of get everybody on the same page and up to snuff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you.
All right. Aubrey.
Yes, please. Just a moment. I've been out there. I lived on that hillside on the Highway 62 side of it years and years ago. And I was recently out there with Frank and the Environmental Action Committee, hoping to take their OHG group out there soon. And this isn't like, you know, there's no land really flat enough for a field right now on any of that property. It's like a big move. You're changing the geology of it to a field, even in the flattest part. But where he's talking about primarily, it's like the Buffalo River. There are places you walk on this trail near Frank's house that are like, what's Hawksville, Craig. I mean, it's terrifying if you're at all worried about drowning off the side and falling 100 feet or something. It can be done. So this is not something our hillside ordinance would allow to be built, most of it. And it was a stretch, probably some of the things that were wrong there for this. So you're not really losing anything. You're protecting something that's just irreplaceable. that anybody in any area would want to have. It's what national parks or our best national parks have. It's like Buffalo River Country. So if you don't look at it, facts and figures won't mean anything to you. That's what I guess you should consider. Go see it, spend time with him, see it from the south end, and drive around up there and look at it, and then also see it from Frank's side, looking out and trying to figure out what down there you can relate to. Because if it's not set aside, somebody will try to blow all those boulders off and all the timber and stick up things that won't, buildings that won't stand through a tornado, which is what we see a lot of here these days. Get them up fast, stick built things. So please give this serious attention, and then study the cost and things. But you need to know the property. It's the most wonderful thing around inside our city, for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate the input. All right, anybody else? Thank you, Frank, for coming. We appreciate your time. All right, let's see what else we have on the agenda.
Well, number 8.
Number 8, orientation date. What were you thinking, Connie?
I am open to whatever you all might want. So, I mean, we can either meet early before next meeting or have a noon meeting, a morning meeting, an evening meeting.
It's going to be a full 2 hours?
It will be, yes, 2 hours.
Is that going to, well, if we do it right before the meeting next month, is that going to give us enough time to get an overview of the Kessler Mountain thing to discuss in that meeting? Or?
Because I think there may be some questions that probably need to be addressed at that orientation.
So that it would have to either wait till March.
So I would say pretty early.
Need to be earlier than that.
Maybe in the next couple of weeks. Personally, I have Tuesdays and Thursdays off. My other days are pretty full unless you want to do something at 8 in the evening. And then I might be late.
Does middle of the day or after work best for folks?
During the week, yeah, I can't get here any earlier than about 4:30.
Okay. So we're probably looking at evening?
I think so.
Okay, on a Tuesday or a Thursday, because we want our vice chair to be here. Always. And probably in February after our next meeting? Or do we want to try and do it before our next meeting?
I'd like to do it before our next meeting.
Will you be able to pull together facts and figures on the regional park by then?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe the last week of January? What's the Tuesday?
Andrew was talking about at the orientation, if we had any questions, to give them a little bit of time to pull it together for the presentation on the next.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Maybe
I was
the 26th.
misunderstood.
Yeah, like so maybe mid to late, mid-January, somewhere around
You're
there.
going to the 29th or the 30th?
24th would give, that's about 20, well, the 21st would be 2 weeks, that's a Monday, that's 2 weeks before February meeting. So
22nd?
22nd, 24th.
Tuesday the 22nd? Okay. You guys are gonna look.
The 22nd is mine and David Prophet's first BTSO meeting that night at 6.
Okay.
So the 24th.
Oh, no, that's right. I'm sorry.
I can do the 24th. Thursday, 24th. 5:30 to 7:30. And would you do it here, Connie, or would you do it down at your office, or?
We could either do it at our office or we could do it at the library.
A library would be
You
good.
know, we
We've
do
done it
the
there
library if
before.
it's available.
About 7:30 on Thursday there. Know what time they close on?
I mean, 5:30 to 7:30?
Yeah, I know
So
what
they-
time they close on Thursday.
Oh, okay.
May not be open.
Last time I was on Thursday night. Ever. I don't know either.
But somebody can probably do it their hours.
So do you want to try and tentatively plan it for that date, the Thursday, the 24th in the evening?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Is that good with everyone? Because we really want, I've got everyone except for Bill here.
Okay.
And I just got to read it. Am I supposed to come because I've just got redone?
We value your input.
Okay, I'll come.
What was that, 5 or 5:30?
Pardon?
What was the time?
Here. Here or the library, depending on availability.
Yes.
Okay.
Here, the library, or possibly Parks office.
They close at 8.
They close at 8. Okay.
That should give us enough time, 2.5 hours.
If it's not taken.
All right.
I guess just email us as far as the location, as long as the
Yes.
time is okay with everyone.
We'll find a spot.
All right, super. That was easy. Orientation day, active transportation, we've already got all those. Any other business that we have?
I just have an informational item.
Okay.
As you know, the transportation department has been busy building that last mile section, and they're on the very last little bit to do. We were lucky in when they were building it that we did get the extra 4.5 acres donated there to the south of that property. And I was just going to let you all know there's been a lot of discussion, but when we first started building Lake Fayetteville, we built the trail to be 10 foot in width. And I think this last section, since it comes from veterans from a parking lot to a parking lot at future parking lot at Botanical Gardens, that they're planning on putting a 12-foot section in there. So just a point.
Is that concrete or asphalt, Iron?
It's asphalt.
Asphalt.
Is that so that they can drive down it? I mean, is that, because I know I've seen out here.
It's just because it's so busy. I mean, there are
It is
areas.
busy.
Well, I know that.
It's just, you know, the other area, when you're going around those sharp curves, some blind curves, you know, there are some big safety issues that have almost hit people, and they have actually hit some people, you know. So it's kind of an educational point, but they felt as though that last section was doing right. That will be a section that's really used a lot, and it does HUD the outside of it. You know, a lot of that is next to, you know, a meadow area, so it is possible to
Do we have a target completion date on that?
They said early spring. So I'll let y'all know. We'll have to use your ribbon cutting. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Weather dependent now. The
Yeah.
asphalt plant has to open back up, it has to be so warm.
Great. There's a lot of people that ask about it.
It's been
Constantly.
amazing, and you know, the section, I mean, it is gorgeous. It's really pretty good there. So.
I did remember I had a question. Do we have any plans for restroom facilities at David Lashley? I had a question about that.
No,
from
it is
some
a
folks.
neighborhood park, and we do not put restrooms basically in it because people want to go to their house to use the restroom.
I've asked my question.
Yeah,
I've done my job.
Basically, in neighborhood parks, we do not put restrooms, we do not put water fountains, we do not put large facilities that have large costs such as swimming pools or tennis courts, you know, those larger type facilities. You know, we have put a wiffle ball at Rodney Ryan Park that has worked out real well for the neighborhood. You know, there's smaller facilities that we put in there.
All right, super. Any other questions? Looks like the only upcoming event we have on the list is city offices will be closed on January 21st for federal holiday. With that, I believe we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.